So as a kid, I grew up in Chinatown, which was 96% Chinese students. And so I didn't see anyone, I had one Black classmate, K through 8. I had two Latinx classmates. And I didn't get a wide variety of experiences because of just the way New York City schools are segregated. And that really played into my experience, where most of my classmates knew about the SHSAT, and most of my friends had actually been studying for the SHSAT since 6th grade. So imagine, like, I know Nusion X, Mega Prep, all these programs where my classmates are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to try to get into one of these schools. Whereas my family didn't have the money, but my brother had one of the SHSAT books, which I used. And it turned out only 7 of the students in my school were able to get into the school. Meanwhile, all these other Asian American students around me, their families lost thousands and thousands of dollars. That's happening today in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic, where parents are spending this money for the hopes for small little amounts of positions that most of them will not be able to get. That just goes to a larger problem of screening. I'm just gonna read a statement from Ronnie Almonte, who wrote about the SHSAT and is a fellow teacher. Especially problematic is the use of screenings, which allow schools to exclude students based on factors such as test scores, grades, attendance records, and interviews. The outcome is a city school system that displays extreme racial and academic segregation, even among schools in the same building. Students who live in the wrong neighborhood or lack the resources to show proficiency are isolated into schools that face the Herculean task of helping them graduate, without the workforce stability, fundraising arms, and competitive offerings of the higher performing schools like Brooklyn Tech. I'm gonna say it, that there's a big elephant in the room, that people who look like me, Asian Americans, are going to be some of the hardest supporters of Hecht-Calandra, because we have figured out that with thousands of dollars of test prep, we can get into these specialized schools and get access to the fundraising resources, the AP classes, the extracurriculars that are accessible at schools like Brooklyn Tech that I was able to go to. But we have to also realize that the rat race kills us all. You know, everything you just said, Joaquin, about how we didn't learn ethnic studies as kids. I had three mentions of Asian American issues in all of AP US history and through my K through 12 education: Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese internment, and the Vietnam War, which are all ways that my people have faced trauma, and it's worse for Chicano studies and Black studies. So just as an Asian American student and a special education teacher now, I see the effects of segregation on my students that unfortunately doesn't actually give us all an education and forces us to all compete in this rat race, which is not okay. We are here as the Moore Caucus of rank and file educators because we believe in democracy within our union and for our students and schools, which is why we support Teens Take Charge today. And what better way to create democracy than to repeal an act that is happening on the state level, where we can't, as New York City folk, actually dictate what the terms of, you know, the specialized high school fight should be, because it's all the way being fought up in the assembly. So once we get that repealed, we can actually talk about it as New York City and actually talk the fight we need to amongst my Asian American community, among the white community, among all these communities that unfortunately have been divided because of the false dichotomies created by this test. So we are here today in support of repealing Hecht-Calandra, and for students to have ethnic studies, people of color counselors, all of these things that we really need in our schools to make sure our students' learning conditions, just like teachers' working conditions, are fair and democratic. Thank you so much for having us here today.